Thank you for joining today for Kids and COVID-19. We're really excited to have everyone here and share some thoughts on mask wearing, hand washing, and more for your kids in light of the recent events. So we'll jump right into it. Our agenda today will begin with introductions of our team. We'll give you a brief overview of Stride and then dive into the content, Kids and COVID. We'll talk about strategies and techniques for hand washing, mask wearing, social distancing, social skills, and setting up your learning environment, and we'll offer a Q&A at the end. So introductions, and let's begin with Ashley.
Welcome, I'm happy to be here. My background is as a clinical psychologist and originally in school psychology. I went to Illinois State University and graduated with a PhD in school psych. And then I'm also a BCBA. Much of my experience clinically has been with kids with autism as well as their families, both in school and clinic settings, as well as working in the in-home setting too. I'm currently an associate professor and university chair at the Chicago School of Professional Psychology at the Chicago campus. So I am located in Chicago, and so my role with Stride, and I'm so excited to be a part of this team and really get back to my roots of serving families and children more directly, is really in helping to train staff, which is something that I have been working through in the last several years.
And Ryan.
Hi, I'm Rihanna Singleton. I am a licensed and board certified behavior analyst. I am for Stride the lead BCBA in our Clive, Iowa location. I have been working with individuals with autism for over 5 years now, about 2.5 years as a BCBA now, and my experience is mainly with ages anywhere from 2 to 20, but I really enjoy and am passionate about the early intervention and preschool age. I am an Iowa native. I'm from Iowa originally, and I currently live in Waukee. I received my Bachelor's of Science in Psychology, and I went to Iowa State for that, and received my Master's of Education in Applied Behavior Analysis from Arizona State University.
Awesome, and I feel lucky to have this amazing team to work with. I'm the founder and CEO of Stride. My name is Brad Zellinger, and I created Stride really to better serve families like my own. I have a sister with an autism spectrum disorder, and we've just been through a lot of the challenges that arise with having a situation like that. And Stride was built to really help other families like ours. So really excited to be here in the Iowa community and to be a resource for families. So moving on to just a quick overview of Stride. Our mission, our mission is to provide the best possible support to children with autism and their families by attracting, developing, and retaining world-class clinicians and therapists. Stride has an unwavering commitment to meaningful outcomes. So really important. We're a very mission-driven organization. Just briefly wanted to talk about how Stride helps. This is really an illustrative graph, and what we're depicting here is the development of 2 children. One is a child, the light blue, that might be a typically developing child, and the green graph is the graph of a child that has an autism spectrum disorder. And this graph depicts a situation where no treatment or no ABA treatment is administered. And really what we're trying to do at Stride is to intervene at the earliest possible moment when the children are have the most plasticity in their behaviors and skills, and really try to help bridge that gap and really catch up those children to that blue line to make them really able to lead the most independent and joyous life possible. And the goal of our program is really to graduate kids into a typical kindergarten classroom. And so about our approach and program, so we're a center-based program, meaning come to our center. Our first location's in Clive. We serve 2 to 6-year-old kids. And we provide clinically effective therapy levels, and that ends up being 25 plus hours a week, typically, depending on your individual child's needs. And we're really helping prepare kids for kindergarten and beyond. And we use applied behavior analysis. That's a main methodology that we use. It's the most evidence-based treatment recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics, the Surgeon General, and many other organizations. And working on things like communication, social skills, toileting and grooming, play skills, sitting, waiting, and transitioning, and really ultimately empowering kids and families to really lead, again, more independent and joyous lives and really work ourselves out of a job. A couple important points in terms of coverage. Our program does accept Medicaid, and it also accepts most major private insurance companies as well. And we are open to conduct intakes and assessments now. And so if you want to get in touch with us, you can either call, email, or visit our website directly via all these three methods. So thank you for hearing a little bit about us, and let's just move into the content. So beginning with kids and COVID-19, just want to give a brief overview that you can submit any questions via our chat function. We will address them at the end. Please be aware that other people can see what you write in the chat, so be mindful of what personal information you might be providing there. And with that, I will turn it to Rihanna.
So definitely making a routine of it more often is going to be helpful. On top of that, you can provide a handy little visual like this in your bathroom. There's a ton of different visuals like this. There's ones with just pictures. There's ones that are written out with every step. And you can just easily find these online. So this is a great tool to have so that while you're teaching the skills, you can go through the steps, but also then when you're eventually not there with them and they can wash their hands then more independently with this handy little visual of, oh, did I get soap? Did I wash my hands right? Did I throw away the towel? All of those awesome things. So this is called a task analysis, which is kind of a fancy way of saying the steps in a task, and you're going to break it up into smaller steps so that you can teach each step so they can complete it the same way every time, but also just more independently in the future. You can advance. So this is an example of just a written out task analysis, and our recommendation would be to use total task chaining. This helps to break it up into smaller steps. So total task chaining would be like if your child can walk to the sink and turn on the water and get their hands in the water, but then they struggle to remember to get soap every single time, then you're going to let them walk to the sink, turn on the water, get their hands in the water, and then when you've given them a second to rinse their hands, you're going to prompt them over to the soap. You're going to help them get their soap. You're going to help them rub their hands. And then if they can rinse their hands by themselves, you're going to allow them to do that independently. Again, another note about singing happy birthday or a different song that they enjoy to remember how long to rub their hands for. If they can then rinse their hands, turn off the water, get a paper towel or towel, dry their hands and throw it away, then you would allow them to do that all independently. If they struggle to dry their hands, say they get the paper towel and they just throw it away, that's when you're going to step in and help prompt. So with a total task chaining, you're going to go in whenever they need the help, but allow them to do all of their steps independently when they can. Yeah, you can advance. When you're providing assistance for those steps, so say they're stuck on a step or say every time they forget to get their soap, you're going to provide assistance by kind of a tell, show, do model. So first you could say, get your soap, or even point to the task analysis, the visual schedule that you have for them available and say, get soap. If they don't do that, then maybe you would model it. So you would get soap and you would say, get soap like me. You'd pump the soap. And then if they couldn't, you would then physical their hand under the soap and their hand on the dispenser and pump it. And then, so that would be for the steps that they would need prompting for. And then you're going to provide praise and reinforcement after your child has completed the entire sequence. So with total task, you're going to reinforce at the end, like, great job washing your hands. Now we can go play with our toys. Now we can do this. Now we can have a snack. And then other ways to practice this, just be a good example and narrate as you complete the full sequence. So as you're washing your hands, either with them or right before them, or even just in the kitchen while they're playing, you can talk about what you're doing. So you can say like, I'm rinsing my hands, I'm getting my soap, I'm rinsing my hands again, I'm singing happy birthday while you wash your hands. And then you can also watch examples together and name each step as you see it. So going through and finding YouTube videos, there's a ton of them on hand washing and talking about it, and then also why we need to be washing our hands more often. Other tips we have for hand hygiene. So prompting your kiddos to cough or sneeze into their elbow. This can be done by modeling as well. Just kind of talking about it, catching them right before they sneeze to help them put their elbow in front of their nose instead. Work on throwing away their tissues instead of maybe just throwing them on the floor. So if they need to blow their nose and they know that they need to go throw that away, and obviously wash their hands again after. You can offer hand sanitizer while on the go. And if, again, your child has a high resistance to hand washing, then you can start with the hand sanitizer at first and then maybe work them up more into that hand washing routine. Okay, our next tips are going to be on mask wearing. So our first tip and most probably obvious tip is just make it fun. There are a ton of different designs of masks now, lots of different unique creative designs, and there's a lot of kid-friendly masks. With that, there's also ones that you can like tie behind your head versus wearing around their ears. There's a lot of different modes of masks now that can possibly help with any sensory issues. And then practice at home with the whole family wearing masks during fun and low stakes activities at home. So this would be like you're playing Legos with your kiddo, or you're cooking dinner, or you're watching a TV show. You know, practice wearing your mask during those times where it's just kind of easier, less high stakes, I should say. So practice. We're always gonna have you practice putting the mask on safely and taking the mask off safely. This can also go back to that tell, show, do. So you can say like, okay, put your mask on. So they're not gonna do it. You're gonna maybe model it for them. Like, look, I put my mask on, you put your mask on. And then if they don't, you would help them put that on. On top of this, if they are struggling to wear the mask, if they really don't like it, this is where you can kind of work up to desensitizing them to that feeling, where you could just start with just maybe touching it to their face, just touching it for 1 second, a couple times a day, and then working up to them actually holding it to their face for a little bit, and eventually working up to actually wearing it around their ears or tying it around their head, and always wearing it over their nose and their chin. Wear masks regularly around the house with your child, even for a few short minutes. If they see you wearing it, they might be more than likely to do it. If they see siblings doing it, friends in the neighborhood doing it, they might be more likely. Slowly work up to longer and longer time frames, like I just talked about. You can, again, just touch to their mouth and then put over their ears and just practice at different times. And again, utilize modeling, telling them to put their mask on and help them to put their mask over their mouth and nose. All right, our next tips are on social distancing. Is this where Ashley starts in? Okay, I'm gonna give it over to Ashley then.
Thank you, Rihanna. Okay, so as you're aware, and we hear so much about right now, keeping distance from other people is really important for physical health. So for kids, it's really important to keep it more visual. So keeping an arm's length away, practicing what that looks like, practicing in your home, what would happen if you're trying to, to navigate in different spaces you may regularly be in. It also can be much more salient to children if you talk about what to do rather than what not to do. So much right now is don't touch that, don't go near that person, don't do this, don't do that. So instead, concentrate on what they can do. So remember to use your elbow bumps, or remember to pound and do a fist bump instead of saying like don't give hugs or don't give high fives. So really focusing on what they can do and what they can practice rather than telling them what not to do. For some of these other things and going out into the community and practicing keeping that physical distance, there are many books available. One book that I found helpful is A Kid's Guide to Coronavirus. This is a PDF book resource available through the American Psychological Association. It is a bit wordy. However, I think that it has some really good visuals in it, and I think that it has kind of a parent guide too, and it talks about some of that social emotional piece of keeping your social distance. There are also a lot of videos out there and social stories where you can show children, this is how we're going to try to act, or showing a cartoon of acting in that certain way in public, to really think about how to do that. Even as adults, it's really hard to rethink how we've been doing things for so long and trying to keep your social distance, or try to follow the guides on the ground when you're waiting for a cashier or something like that. So if we think it's difficult for adults to do that, remembering to give those reminders and models to children can be really important too. The other piece that kind of comes along with that social distance is that physical distancing means that there is often less access to peers and to others to practice those social skills. So often in my clinical experience, I'm saying, don't forget to practice those social skills, practice them with many different people, not just in the house, but all these other places. And now it's almost the opposite advice. It's very limited. The number of people that you're asked to come in contact with, by definition, is much smaller. However, it does remain important to continue to work on these social skills. Luckily, many of these things can still be practiced at home, within your environment, or within, if you have a pod or people that you are coming in closer contact with, how to practice those skills. One way that I like in the visual in the picture here is to really show that, like, what does arm's length distance look like? How does that feel in the cartoon picture? And then in the photograph, it looks like it's in like a daycare setting or something like that. But even at home, practicing sitting in a hula hoop, like, make it kind of fun. Like, okay, this is your space, this is your sibling's space, or this is mom's space, this is your space, whatever it takes to practice doing some of those things and staying in that. Small children, it's often hard to sit still to begin with, but having that hula hoop visual or somewhere to be present to can help practice those skills at home while you're practicing the greetings and some of those other skills that you will want to continue to maintain over this time. So some of those skills that really become important to continue to practice while you can at home are things like taking turns. So often this might be done with other peers or classmates. You can still do it at home. Practice taking turns with toys, practice sharing toys or trading toys. Like if a child has a really preferred toy, even as a parent, be like, okay, well, it's my turn to play with this toy, so that you can practice giving that give and take of sharing, even with an adult or somebody else in the home. Another piece is to practice those conversation skills. So they might not have as many conversational partners available to say hi to or to greet. Even in the cases of perhaps other therapies like speech therapy or something like that, it's likely more limited than it used to be. And really practicing asking questions of your child and also answering their questions. And so part of that is prompting them to ask questions. And this could be vocal questions. It may be using a communication or other type of device to help ask the questions, or perhaps they're using picture cards, whatever that particular child's developmental current state is for their communication, to really continue to practice that within your home. As adults, during this time, it can be really overwhelming to stay on top of just all of the things if you're working from home, or just having the additional stressors in life. So really set a plan. Set a plan at the beginning of the week or at the beginning of the day of when you're going to practice these conversation skills. So sometimes it might come up naturally. You're going to want to practice it even more. So set a plan for that. Plan, like, okay, at dinner, we're going to all try to sit for 10 minutes of dinner time before, kids might get up and wander. And we're going to practice asking, what did you do today? Or what did you have for lunch? Or whatever questions, and then practice those responses. Vary the way the questions are asked and vary the way that the responses are, so that they have multiple examples to go off of. Even when you're with each other all day, it can be difficult to remember to say, like, well, what did you do today? Or what was your favorite part of today? How did you feel about that? What did you learn today? So again, depending on the vocal verbal repertoire of the child, what their language looks like, those questions might be tailored. It might also be modeling with another adult in the home or a sibling, some of these conversation skills. So maybe that one of a younger child or a child with autism may not be directly in that interaction modeling those different types of social interactions throughout the day is also really important. Another way to do this to have more conversational partners is to utilize technology. So FaceTiming family members, this can also be kind of a twofold goal where you might be, interacting more with grandparents or other relatives or those that they might not be able to physically see either because of travel restrictions or social distancing. And so practicing those skills via FaceTime. There also are some really great video models out there of watching, different conversation skills and navigating that, through using technology. And also, again, I'm going to revisit using the books for this one too. So you could even talk about characters, choose books where the characters are having a conversation or maybe even showing their emotions and things like that, or if something bad happens in the story, how do you think this character feels? So having those conversations, talking about the emotion identification, reaction, social skills, even in the absence of having some of those live experiences out in the community. Another important point that's really different now, and I think it's really something that I'm hoping that we can kind of carry with us through this time, is really preparing a home learning environment. So this is important now because so many people are working and learning and doing school at home or doing like teletherapies, things like that, that this is really something to think of and be mindful even outside of the current pandemic conditions. And so what I really want the takeaway to be here is whatever works for your family. Different learning environments at home look different for every family, and that's okay. The other piece is you don't have to go out and buy all this like fancy new stuff just to make it work. So some of the things that I like in these pictures that I've put here is that one picture in the upper right hand corner, it does look like it's just a folding table. It's not a fancy desk. It's probably something that family already had around. A lot of the different visuals that really make it look like a classroom, like a name tag or a number line or something like that, are pretty easy to find either, at a dollar store or Target or, online. They don't necessarily have to be expensive. You can also make them or have your child help make them. Those carts, it's like a purplish color in the one picture and they're kind of a teal color in the other. Those are very popular because they keep all those materials and supplies really close and at the learner's fingertips. So that's really helpful so that they're not running through the house, looking for things while they're learning. And I know, there's a variety of different modalities and ways that learning is structured right now, where some schools are hybrid, some schools are all in person now, some schools are all remote, and that might continue to flex and change throughout the fall. One of the important takeaways for all of these is to really have an environment that's low distraction. Again, that might be different for different members of your family or your own family. It's important that it's low distraction, but it's also important that your learner has access to help. So if they do need access to, help, in that top picture in the middle, it looks like the child is coloring a picture and the father is nearby and could help maybe doing his own work and could reach in and help if needed. So just really trying to plan like what that looks like for your family or even for that particular learner or that particular activity, and how to balance that distraction and access to help. Headphones can be helpful in that. Learning to kind of tolerate and use headphones or find the right headphones that work for your child can be a difficult process too. I know earbuds are often uncomfortable for children, and so using some of those larger ones can be nice. Sometimes they're noise canceling too, which might help with that low distraction environment too. And then thinking about some of the other materials outside of just school supplies. So having a water bottle, the picture in the lower right corner, that child does have a water bottle closely available too, so that's something that the stalling and some of those other things won't happen if there's a water bottle nearby. Thinking about posture, having a chair that has a back. If their feet don't hit the floor, maybe putting a stool or some books or something on there, putting their, if they are using technology like a tablet or a computer for something, maybe even stacking it up on books so that they're not looking down too much or looking up too much, to kind of have that posture being considered too. Another thing is that each learner is different. This learner in the middle, she might be going through some sort of like teletherapy or even learning remotely with her teacher and having those materials. So the materials that are available for one child or one learner might be very different than another, and that's okay. And again, goes back to that, whatever works for your family and in that situation, and really trying to prepare an environment that will be anticipating some of those needs and trying to help all the learners in the environment be successful. Another part of this can be their daily schedules. And so these can be found similar to those task analyses, like the hand washing. These can be found online. They're relatively inexpensive to make. You can laminate them, and that's not required. In this time, it can be difficult to really set some of those routines. Many families aren't commuting as much, or maybe not doing as many drop-offs. So it's easy to slip out of routines. And the truth is that most kids and even adults really need that routine. That structured morning routine and nighttime routine can help improve sleep too, and just anticipating what comes next. And so even if not a schedule during the day, sometimes just having those morning and night routines can really set the stage to be successful, feel as though something is accomplished. So the first scheduled on the left is really just that morning routine. Did you wake up, get dressed, eat breakfast, brush teeth? And sometimes this can also help eliminate some of those vocal prompts or the nagging that tends to happen as a parent of like, did you do this? Did you do that? So having some of those visuals. What I like about the one on the far right is there's an all done envelope. So removing them when they're done. That can really help set up success for the beginning and end of days in particular. They can also act as prompts to remind somebody. I know, sometimes an adult might be in a meeting or be otherwise busy and unable to help, but having that schedule of whatever works for that child. So that could be the visual of the picture with the word, which is really, helpful for younger learners or for those who are not readers. Older children or readers might be able to, have the words present. And just think about how even as adults, we use so many of these visual prompts in our environment. I know I rely very heavily on my own Google Calendar or on a written planner, to-do lists to remember to do, go from one task to another. And so, creating these isn't necessarily creating something that, like, oh, sometimes I hear the critique of daily schedules is that, oh, we don't want to add something else because then they're just going to become reliant on it. Well, adults rely on these types of visuals too, so it's just making it more of a developmentally appropriate way of a child kind of going through and doing that. And depending on your learner and what they're excited about, it might be kind of fun to have them help build that process as well. And again, we're back to when in doubt, make it fun. And so some ways to do that are to create some different incentives for completing the schoolwork, or even just for completing the morning routine and the evening routine, to help gain some of that that structure back into daily life, particularly during the week. So some ways to do that can also be through using token boards. And so these are just some of my favorite different types of examples that are out there. It can be really simple where it's the stars. It really doesn't even need to be objects. It could even be as simple as, a sticker, or it could be, checking a box, something like that. The idea behind the top left one is that the stars, once all three of those are done, which could be 3 tasks, 3 trials, it could be 3 math problems, or whatever that might be, answering 3 questions to go back to practicing your conversation skills. And then there's a picture of what they would earn. So again, it doesn't need to be a physical prize or a snack, which I think a lot of people think of in these moments. It could be something as a break, or time on their iPad, or a walk, or whatever. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It could be anything little, or an activity-based thing as well. Another way to do it is to have a real photo token board, which is the Thomas one, so that they're actually putting together the puzzle pieces. So this is, as each task is completed, another puzzle piece is put in until they can see the whole picture. This is really nice for children who really like a particular character or something, and for those who who might get excited about seeing that whole picture. And then the chase one at the top really shows too, where you can choose, are you going to go for a walk, do the puzzle, computer, take a break, or snack, choosing what that child is working for, and then earning the little chase badges for each individual one. So the important part here is that you're recognizing small pieces of the progress, as well as then the larger, after, in this case, five trials or 5 activities. And then finally, this one I thought was kind of fun, is that they could put on their own pizza toppings to design their pizza as they are filling up that pizza to be their token board. Some other ideas to keep kids engaged and learning are to create those brain breaks. There's a lot of different resources out there for different activities. I've seen some activities where they'll give like trials of, letter names, and then do some jumping jacks and things like that, where they have these brain breaks built into the learning. For some learners, that kind of tricks them into doing some activities while thinking they're doing like a little exercise activity. They're also doing their learning as they're going. Creating time for that active time. One of the favorite things in my house for my kiddos is Cosmic Kids Yoga. And so those are available. They have an app, but they're also available free on YouTube, and they go through many different stories. There's Harry Potter and Frozen, and those are different like yoga moves, but they're all while telling that story. And so that can be good. Again, kind of 2 activities, listening to the story and practicing going through that, as well as some stretching and that kind of built in. That's really good, especially in the winter or when it's really challenging to get outside. Which brings me to the last one, to get outside as the weather allows. I know that's going to be changing soon, but trying to, again, it doesn't need to be fancy, but go outside, maybe blow some bubbles, go for a walk, go find some leaves, find different colored leaves as you're working through things, but to get out of the house, particularly if you're stuck at home a lot of the time, but to change that environment into even getting outside can be stressful sometimes, of just like, oh, what do we have to bring? What do we have to do? Well, just go outside for a little bit and get some of that fresh air. It can be good for both the adults in the house as well as the kids too. And that brings us to the end of our presentation. So we are happy to answer any questions about our actual presentation, or and I think Brad will help us with this part, or any questions about Stride as well.
Yeah, thank you to everyone who joined here. Just taking a look here at the questions. So one question that comes up is it has to do with face shields. So what, if there's a family or an individual that is using a face shield, do we have a recommendation for how that individual should be using a face shield, like potentially in lieu of a mask?
I can start, and then Rihanna, if you want to jump in, you can as well. So from what I've seen in the research, it's a little bit more limited in terms of how much does a face shield stop some of the droplets. However, for some kids, if that's I think it's better than nothing if to have some type of shield. I know that sometimes the concern, though, is the facial expressions and things like that can be lost for the adults. And there are other masks that have those little windows and things like that. So if the concern is that the child can't see the mouth moving, whether it's because they're lip reading or just to see some of those expressions, I think there's other, there might be other ways to kind of go around that. Using a face shield is usually recommended in addition to a mask. I don't know, Ryan, if you have other pieces to add to that as well.
No, that is where my thought process was as well. I know some areas are allowing them as far as in the school system, at least here in Iowa. However, again, most likely it is a mask that's going to be required with that. And kind of going off of what you said, just the different masks that allow you to be able to see their mouth are also very helpful whenever you're thinking about having your child not understanding what's going on or listening to different people speak or understanding those facial expressions.
Okay. Well, we didn't get a lot of questions here, so I think with that, we just want to thank you so much for joining us. Stride is new to the Clive area and to Des Moines, and just really excited to be a resource for the community and excited to engage with families and anyone that's interested in what we're doing. So please feel free to contact us either by phone, email, or directly on our website. And yeah, we just really excited to hear from you. So thanks again for joining, and we hope to talk soon. Bye-bye.